And the First Lady can't read. Puffy can't stop wilding, and kids can't stop asking for iPhone 17s. We gonna get into it. Let's get it! Welcome. First of all, welcome. This is Unsolicited Perspectives. I'm your host, Bruce Anthony, here to lead the conversation in important events and topics that are shaping today's society. Join the conversation and follow us wherever you get your audio podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for our video podcast, YouTube exclusive content, and our YouTube membership. Rate, review, like, comment, share. Share with your friends, share with your family, hell, even share with your enemies. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about Melania visiting the kids. We're going to be talking about Sean Combs' The Reckoning, and we're going to be talking about kids and Christmas lists. But that's enough of the intro. Let's get to the show. All right, ladies and gents, let's talk about Melania Trump reading to children like she was doing community service that she didn't agree to do. Melania Trump's recent Christmas story time at Children's National Hospital sparked backlash online, with critics saying her reading style seemed flat, awkward, and devoid of emotion, even as the event itself followed a long-standing First Lady holiday tradition. So Melania Trump visited the Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C., where she read the book, How Does Santa Go Down the Chimney, to a small group of young patients and their families seated in a large red chair in front of a Christmas tree. Their appearance was part of the customary holiday visit First Ladies make to hospitalized children and include brief remarks sending love and best wishes from President Donald Trump as well. A clip of the reading circulated widely on social media showing Melania holding the book towards herself, reading in a very monotone voice, and rarely showing the illustrations to the children. Viewers pointed out that the kids seated beside her looked bored or disengaged, which fueled comments that she appeared to be going through the motions rather than connecting with them. Commentators mocked her performance as cringy or cringemas, kind of like Christmas, but cringemas, accusing her of lacking warmth and not understanding how to read to children, specifically not turning the book outward or changing her tone to keep them engaged. Some reactions went beyond the reading itself, framing her as uninterested in the role and contrasting her demeanor with expectations of nurturing, expressive First Ladies during such appearances. Coverage of the backlash often contrasts this video with Jill Biden's earlier visit to the same hospital, where she interacted frequently with children, showed pictures as she read, and involved President Joe Biden in playful moments with the kids. These comparisons were used to underscore critics' claims that Melania's reading felt more like an obligation than a heartfelt encounter with sick children. Now, I typically don't defend the Trumps. I typically don't. I've always said, attack the president for his policies, attack the president for what he says and does. Leave the family alone, except for Don Jr. and them, because they want to be involved with politics. But Melania and Barron, they didn't ask for none of this. They very rarely get involved or say anything unless, it's a convention or something like that. I want family left out of it, just like I wanted Joe Biden's kids to be left out of it, just like I wanted Obama's kids to be left out of it, just like I wanted W's kids to be left out of it. Clinton, like Hillary, leave the kids out of it. First ladies shouldn't really be critiqued unless they're out there politicking. Hillary was during Clinton's first administration. He gave her health care. She was being introduced into politics. That's fair game. Melania, not for attacking her at all. She's sitting here doing a good thing. It's a long-standing tradition to read to the kids. And not everybody knows, one, how to read out loud and keep it engaging. Let's talk about that first. A lot of people don't like reading out loud. Now, go back. We're all adults now, or kids in college, not far removed from school. Go back to elementary school, middle school, hell, even high school. When the teacher used to ask you to read out loud. Now, you're probably a really good reader. You probably read at a really good reading level. But there's something about that anxiety of reading in front of people that's terrifying, that makes you mess up on words. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't rehearse the notes that I read. What I just read to you guys, I didn't rehearse. I read through it silently, but I didn't rehearse reading it out loud. Reading it out loud was the first time I read it out loud. Now, I don't have a bunch of people looking at me. I got a camera pointed at me. There's nobody else in here but just me. So even though thousands of people are listening to this and watching this, I don't really have those eyeballs on me, but we all know what it's like to read in front of people. Not just to read in front of people, but to read in front of people and have cameras rolling while you're doing it. Let's also say that even though that she says she speaks 5 languages, which I believe, because most Europeans, Africans, basically everybody else in other countries beside the US speak multiple languages. They might not speak it fluently, but they speak it. Let's not forget English is not her first language. Okay? Now, she done been here long enough, and this administration sure as hell loves to point out people from foreign countries that they say need to speak American. I love it when people say they need to speak American, like American is a language. What they mean is English, Americanized English at that. But there's so many people, especially MAGA, who is like, speak American. Learn how to speak English. Okay, well, Melania, you the first lady and you're going to be reading in front of people. I'm defending the fact that reading in front of people can be a little nerve-wracking, but you've been first. This is your second time being first lady. You done been first lady for a total of 5 years. You knew this was coming. They do it every year, right? Like you knew it was coming. Why didn't they prep her? Why didn't they say, look, let's read the book over and over and over again. Let's almost have it memorized because it's a children's book, right? Let's almost have it memorized so that you're more reciting it and acting out to give more of a representation that you want to be here. I seen the video. She's reading like she doesn't want to mess up, and she still messes up. Hell, I messed up reading a couple of words during my entrance. And English is my first language. So people gonna mess up. It's all good. But that's what she was focused on, was not messing up. She didn't turn that book to show it to the kids. Anybody that knows that you read the kids, you gotta kind of act it out. I'm not a parent, but I have read to kids. I've read to my brother and sister when they were kids, right? You gotta act it out, okay? Maybe even change your voice for different characters. That's just the way it is. And she didn't do that. And it was a bad presentation compared to every other first lady that has ever done that. It did come off as, why do I have to do this? It did come off as community service. And let's be frank, it is. Because it's not like she could say, I don't want to do this. You're not going to read. You're not going to read to the kids. You're not going to read to sick kids. You're not going to read to sick kids on Christmas. Well, it's not on Christmas, but you know what I mean. Like you not going to do that. You're going to decide to skip over. You can't. You got to do it. It's a long-standing tradition. But they should have prepped her a little bit better than this. This was bad. It was bad. Them kids acted like they didn't even want to be there. And look, let me tell you something. Bruce loved the kids. Love the kids. I think children are the most, well, number one, they're the most honest. But they're the most pure persona of a human. Persona isn't the right word. The most pure aspect of being human, right? Because one, they're a sponge, they're learning. They can learn either good stuff from their people or bad stuff from their people. But kids don't really see color. Kids can see differences, but they don't really care about the differences. You want to be my friend? Sure. You want to go run? Sure. You want to spend time with each other? Sure. They're honest. They're what adults should aspire to be in their authenticity of being themselves. As we get older, we become jaded. We wear our scars from all our trauma and we project that on to people and we lose the little people that we are. We do. I wish I could talk to little Bruce. I wonder if little Bruce would be proud or disappointed in the person that I am. I know Lil Bruce will have a lot of damn questions about where I am in my life right now, how the hell I got here. And Lil Bruce would be brutally honest. He'd be like, is this what you really want? Are you happy? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm good. There's some things that I wish I had in my life, but everybody wishes they had some things in them. Grass is always greener on the other side. But is it really? Just water the grass that you got. As I detour, the point I'm trying to make is that we should do things for the kids because we need to show kids why it's important to do nice things for each other. Continuously doing nice things for each other. This and its action is doing something nice for the kids on Christmas. I don't necessarily agree with all the backlash Melania is getting from this. I don't. She's doing something nice and in this politicized world, which I'm a part of, and a lot of things need to be politicized and a lot of things need to have lines drawn in the sand. This ain't one of them. Not when it comes to the kids. There are no lines drawn in the sand when it comes to kids. We should feed them. We should make sure they're housed. We should make sure that they're taken care of as far as their medical stuff. We should love them. Because we all know, we all remember when we didn't feel that as a kid. Maybe not necessarily the lack of shelter or the food, but the lack of love, the lack of safety. And these are kids that are facing unimaginable sickness, right? Because you can imagine an adult going through it, but your heart just breaks when little kids are going through it. They just want to go outside and play and they can't because they're sick. So, a first lady, a long-standing tradition, comes to read to them. Yeah, it's not done well. It's not done well. And that's where I lay fault, not just on Melania, but her team, right? Like they should have prepared her better for this because it's not about her and a photo op and heap praise on the fact that she's doing something that is a long-standing tradition, but in itself is inherently a good thing and that should be praised. The focus shouldn't be on her. It should be on them damn kids. Because you're doing this to give them just a momentary relief of the pain that they're feeling each and every day. You're doing it to put a smile on their face because of the pain that they're going through each and every day. And because of that, you should prepare. Your team should have you prepared. You should take more pride in the fact that you are there to give these kids a momentary release from their everyday pain. I don't criticize that she didn't do it well. I'm criticizing the preparation and the effort. If you prepared, you put effort in, you flub up on some words just because this is not your first language, baby girl, you don't got no complaints from me. You did something great. You did something beautiful for the kids. No complaints. When you don't prepare and you don't put in the effort to show those kids respect not just for the long-standing tradition, push that out the way. Respect for the fact of what they're going through and that you're there to bring some joy during a happy time that is Christmas for kids, right? That is the major thing for kids. Their birthdays and Christmas. Huge thing. And they're in this hospital and they're sick. You were supposed to bring them joy. You came in ill-prepared. And because you came in ill-prepared, you're going to get this criticism. And of course, MAGA is going to be like, why are you going to jump down her throat, do this and that? That's not her first language. Once again, I don't care that it's not her first language. I don't care that she mess up on words. I mess up on words all the time. I just did. I mess up on words all the time. English is my first language. And I still mess up. I'm not tripping off of that. I'm tripping at the lack of respect and the lack of preparation that was not done to bring these kids joy. And I think that's fair criticism. But if Melania put these kids to sleep, Puffy's story is about to wake you right back the hell up. And we're going to get into that next. Every time you look into Puffy's past, another wild allegation jumps out like this is a P. Diddy and the Family tour. What am I talking about? The Reckoning. Sean Combs' The Reckoning just came out on Netflix, and I said on the Sibling Happy Hour that I was going to watch it this weekend. I binged it on Friday and Saturday, watched all 4 episodes, and said I was going to give my critique, my summary of this documentary. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is 50 Cent wasn't being petty. He came on Good Morning America, and he said something that I'm going to piggyback off at the end of this segment, but he said something that there's no beef between me and Puffy. I did this because a lot of people in the hip hop community aren't really speaking about this, and I don't want anybody to think that the hip hop community condones the actions of these things. Us as Black people, now I'm speaking to my Black people out there, and I'm giving everybody else who isn't Black an insight into Black culture. Us as Black people are used to being persecuted, are used to being attacked, and assassinated. Whether you're Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, anybody that with Abraham Lincoln, even though he technically didn't free the slaves, but I'm not going to get into that. He freed the slaves under his watch, but I'm not going to get into that. Okay. Technically, anybody that's helped any Black Americans or helped Black American progress in this country has been assassinated, right? Been killed, has been villainized. And because of that, anytime that we have a hero, we tend to defend them even when the shit that they do is wrong. And we know it's wrong. Case in point, O.J. Simpson. You had so many Black people out there celebrating. Why? Do we think O.J. did it? Hell yeah, we think O.J. did it, not by himself. I'm long-standing believe that I don't think that O.J. did it by himself, but he's definitely responsible for everything, right? But do we also think the LAPD was racist? Yes. Right? Like, that's also a thing. Do we think the prosecution of O.J. Simpson had racist undertones? Yes. So because of that, we're going to defend him even though we know that he's wrong. Why? Because there's been so many innocent people that have been treated this way. It's the reason why you still have people that still riding for Bill Cosby, even though we know he's wrong, right? It's the reason why, even though Louis Farrakhan has said anti-Semitic things, you'll still have people in the Black community defend him. Why? Because he's built up the Black community, right? He empowers the Black community. Man, he also did some ill stuff that said anti-Semitic comments that I don't condone at all. And so I have to distance myself from him because I'm like, yo, I can't rock with you when you're spewing hatred. The same reason why I've stepped away from Dave Chappelle, because it's anti-trans comedy. People would say that he's not anti-trans, but bruh, all you do is talk about trans people and make jokes about it. So, but that's the insight into the Black community. What 50 is saying, he was like, look, this documentary is important. One, 50 is being petty. He is. He's absolutely being petty. He doesn't particularly hate Puffy. He doesn't particularly have beef with Puffy. He just doesn't particularly like him all that much, right? But also, he did not want people to think that hip hop culture was defending Diddy or being silent when and condoning that. And we have an issue in the hip hop community because we stayed silent to R. Kelly and we knew exactly what R. Kelly was doing. And then when we saw the documentaries, we were like, oh goodness, we got to cancel R. Kelly, right? And then you got some people out there that's like, I'm not canceling R. Kelly. He made good music. It's problematic. It's moral gymnastics. But that was 50's explanation, and I'm gonna get into more of that later in the segment, but there were some things in this documentary that I kind of wanted to clear up and I wanted to talk about. Because some information was new, but a lot of information was retreads, and people are coming to me and they're like, "Bruce, can you believe that? Can you believe this? Can you believe that?" And I'm like, "That's not true." And the documentary kind of leaned into it without saying certain things, but like, if you know the history of this, and I'm of that generation, since I remember the day that Tupac was shot. I remember when Biggie was shot. I was present in the moment. I was in high school, ready to enter into college, a few years away from entering college. I remember that, right? And everything falling along with that. I remember the 95 Source Awards. So I have a different perception of everything, a different interpretation of everything. And I have the facts because I was always curious about this Tupac and Biggie beef. So the beef, let's go with how the beef started. Tupac was accused of sexually assaulting a young lady. Him and a couple of different people. One of the other people that was accused was this gangster in New York that Tupac was hanging around, that Tupac basically built Patton Birdie from above the rim after Haitian Jack. Haitian Jack is a notorious gangster in New York, right? Notorious gangster in New York. So there's the sexual assault allegation made by this young lady for Tupac and several people. Haitian Jack was one of them. Tupac felt that Haitian Jack and his boys were throwing him under the bus. So he started verbalizing that he didn't do anything to this young woman. It was them. This was pissing Haitian Jack and people in Haitian Jack's camp off. This is what led to Tupac being shot in Quad Studios by Jimmy Henchman and his crew. I'm not snitching. This is all documented. It's all been uncovered. These are the facts. Puffy, Biggie, nobody had anything to do with Pac being shot in Quad Studios, being shot the first time or the second time. They had nothing to do with it. This documentary kind of leads that maybe Puffy had something to do with it. He did not. That was the reason why Pac was shot. Now, the reason why Pac was upset at Biggie and Puffy and all of them is because he was like, man, I got shot in your town. I got shot in a studio that y'all were recording in. Y'all don't know nothing. Y'all can't help me out. This is supposed to be your city. I come here. Y'all can't even protect me, which Pac was wrong. Pac put himself in that position. Biggie and Puffy didn't have nothing to do with that. And Haitian Jack and Jimmy Henchman were for real gangsters in New York City. Why are they going to interject themselves into Pac's situation when they ain't got nothing to do with it? Pac was wrong for blaming them on that. Fast forward, how does Death Row and Bad Boy get into a beef? It's not Death Row and Bad Boy. It's Suge and Puffy. Now, the documentary insinuates that Puffy was trying to get at Suge's side piece in Atlanta, and that caused friction. I'm inclined to believe it because typically what caused friction between two men is women. Not the woman's fault. It's the ego of men. But yes, this was probably over a woman. And one of Suge's homeboys got killed by an associate of Puffy. So Suge felt like Puffy was responsible and the war is on. It's funny because Pac is in jail during this time. Pac is in jail. And he is giving interviews saying that he believes Bad Boy is somehow responsible because they were there and they should know. Suge is hearing this, right? And Pac is a great artist. Suge bails him out of jail. But why does Suge bail him out of jail? Suge doesn't bail him out of jail before he has beef with Puffy. He bails him out of jail after he has beef with Puffy to incite more beef. This wasn't an East Coast, West Coast beef. This was a Death Row, Bad Boy beef, and it was really one-sided. It was members of Death Row, Suge and Tupac, having beef with Puffy, and Pac having a semi-beef with Big. Because he said in interviews, even after the fact, he was like, that's my little brother. I love my little brother, but my little brother's out of line, and sometimes you got to spank your little brother. Pac didn't want Biggie dead. Biggie didn't want Pac dead. Suge and Puffy, those things are a little different. So that's how the beef started, and then the media pushed this East Coast, West Coast thing. And it wasn't East Coast, West Coast. It later became different camps because Pac kept attacking everybody in New York. And then it kind of became this thing, but it's really initiated from Pac and Biggie, right? I mean, from Suge and Puffy. And Puffy didn't have anything to do with Tupac being killed. Now, Puffy does have an affiliation with the Crips that has been well documented before this documentary. It's been well documented. But the case for Tupac is easily been solved already. Okay, this is all, I'm not snitching. Orlando Anderson, a Crip from Los Angeles, got jumped in Las Vegas by Pac and their boys because Orlando Anderson had robbed a Death Row affiliate of their Death Row chain in LA. The guy that got robbed was with Pac and Suge in Vegas for a Mike Tyson fight. They saw Orlando Anderson, the guy who robbed him. They go and jump him. Orlando Anderson and Keefe D, his uncle, is like, let's go get him. They're riding around in Vegas trying to find Pac. They find Pac, they light him up. They don't have nothing to do with Puffy. Now, does Puffy have a connection to Keefe D and Orlando Anderson? Yes. In this documentary and in other documentaries, it was established that Puff put a bounty on Death Row people for their Death Row chains. That might be true. But is Puffy directly responsible? Did he order a hit on Tupac? No. Biggie's murder, something totally different. Hasn't been solved yet. We don't even know. We think Suge has something to do with it, but that's that. But aside from that, because a lot of people have been like, what's the truth of the situation? Aside from that, let's get into some of the documentary that I felt was revelatory. So I always knew from making the band that Sean Combs was an asshole. I just didn't realize how much of an asshole he is. So they gave a couple of examples, some new revelations. I don't think that's the right word. Some new information, not revelations. Some new information that would point to Puffy being an absolute asshole. So Biggie had this huge funeral after he passed away in New York. It's still talked about. It's still videos shown, okay? And Puffy wanted to have the biggest funeral for Biggie, the biggest New York funeral for Biggie. His right-hand man, his man that was running the company, handling the finances, is showing him how much this funeral is going to cost. And what Puffy decides to do is have Biggie's estate pay for it. Also, it's alleged by the same person that was running the finances for Biggie, running the finances for Bad Boy, that Biggie had signed a new contract and then he died. And that Puffy had him go back over the contract and change some things so that it was more favorable for Bad Boy. So the accusation is that Puffy was screwing over Biggie's estate. And I believe it. Because if you look at Puffy's history with any of his artists, he is always screwing them over financially. None of them talk about how, man, Bad Boy really took care of me and we had a good time at Bad Boy and we made money. None of them talk about that. None of them. And why would they? Because it didn't happen. And Puffy had learned from some of the best. He had learned from Andre Harrell, who was the main man at Uptown Records, and Clive Davis. And there's one thing that we do know about the music industry, they're gonna screw their artists. But another thing that was interesting is that Biggie was supposed to have the Rolling Stone cover. And this is all from what people are saying in the documentary, but I believe it. And here's the thing about documentaries, you gotta realize that they're kind of biased. I think this documentary tried to do a good job of painting a clear picture and not being too biased, but it's still biased. Right? Like it's a thesis paper, right? And they have a thesis statement and they're trying to prove their thesis statement by giving you examples of why their thesis statement is true. And the thesis statement of this documentary is Sean Combs is an asshole. And they give you more and more examples of how Sean Combs is an asshole. But one of them was this Rolling Stone cover. And that Biggie was supposed to be on the Rolling Stone cover. Biggie dies. And then Sean Combs changes it. It's like, no, we're going to promote my album. I'm going to be on the cover. Sounds like an asshole to me. Violence and death surround Puffy. And that is clear and evident throughout this documentary, but also some of this stuff wasn't new, right? These are all information that if you've been paying attention, if you've been watching other documentaries or just living in that life, you knew that violence and death kind of surrounds Puffy. And it starts at the stampede at the celebrity basketball game in 91 or 92, right? A bunch of people died. And honestly, I don't believe that's his fault. I think that was a freak accident of people bum rushing a building and people being trampled and died. I don't blame that on him. Could it have been planned better? Maybe. Did he over promote it? Probably. But as a promoter, you promote something. That's what you do. It's better to over promote something than under promote it. Who could foresee that people were going to bum rush the door and people were going to be trampled to death? 9 people died, and it's a sad story. But I don't hold him accountable for that. Now, let's fast forward years later. And the beating of Steve Stout. And that happened 8 months before the Club New York shooting, where his artist Shine goes to prison, and Puffy, has a court trial and everything. And a witness says that Puff had a gun and been shooting it. And the witness has been saying this for years, that Puff had a gun and was shooting it. And I believe it. I believe it because if you know the history of Sean Combs growing up, he was the son of a hustler that ran with Nicky Barnes, a notorious heroin drug trafficker in the 70s. So growing up with this lore above your head can be all-consuming for the sons, right? The sons of these men who had this reputation. And he never knew his father, so he's learning this stuff from stories, right? And who doesn't want to be a gangster? Everybody wants to be a gangster. Sean didn't grow up like that, but everybody wants to be a gangster. Everybody wants to be a gangster until it's time to be a gangster. Everybody wants to play gangster. Everybody wants the notoriety and love of gangsterdom. Until you got to get dirty with it, then nobody wants it. So do I think he shot at the club? Yeah. Just like there is another conversation in the documentary that he and his son Justin shot a man in the bathroom and tried to cover it up. Yeah, I believe that. Also, the multiple sexual assaults, another part of the death and the violence. This is going all the way back to 92. Young lady said that she was sexually assaulted, drugged, and assaulted 92. And the reason why I believe these things is because all the stories that they have are similar, right? Drugging, sexual assault. Aubrey Day didn't accuse Puffy, but somebody wrote a letter and saying that she was unresponsive and being sexually assaulted by Puffy and another man. And it's a similar story in all of these assaults. Drugging, incapacitated, assault. Now, there's 2 ways you could look at that. You could say it's a pattern of behavior that would mean that this is the truth, or you could say it's a template used for accusations. Those are 2 ways that you can look at it. I tend to be of, if the stories are the same and it's repeated throughout years, odds are it's the truth. Would I bet my life on it? No, because I wasn't there. But I'm going to believe the women more than I believe him, especially when the stories and the similarities of the stories are consistent. But another thing that was new that I learned in the documentary was drug use. So they established that Puffy in the beginning didn't smoke weed, didn't really drink, he was about hustling and grinding and everything like that. Something happened where he and his wife at the time, Kim Porter, had gotten into a fight and his wrist got slit. Now, the stories vary as to, did he slice his wrist in an attempted suicide or an attempt to get attention for suicide? Was he fighting with her and she broke a bottle and accidentally slit his wrist? Something happened. His wrist got slit. And nobody knows the story. Unless you're there, you can't know what the true story is. But what came from that is him being prescribed Percocet. And they say from that moment on, he became addicted to drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, using that stuff for these freak offs to be able to stay up for hours. You see the escalation of the acts of him constantly getting into trouble, these acts constantly being escalated through the influence of these drugs. And there is definitely a correlation between the two. This was new because I thought Puffy, that was his name. I thought he was Puffy because he used the puff. That would make sense, right? But that he was living a clean life, that's surprising to me. And this led to, this accident and the prescription of Percocet led to him being a drug user. And as you look at these videos, because he's constantly recording himself throughout his entire life, you look at his videos, if you've known somebody or seen somebody, or if you have used drugs before, you see the signs. Right? Like you can see it in the eyes, you can see it in the actions, the up and down of the actions, like you see it. It makes sense now. So that was a new revelation. What disappointed me, and this is going back to 50, this is going back to the beginning of the segment, was this idea that his longtime assistant knew some of these things that was going on, knew about him harming Kim Porter, which is the wife of his 4 kids, knew about some of these allegations, knew about his treatment, knew about his up and down mood swings and all about that, knew about his destructive behavior, knew about it for years and didn't say anything because he was so important to the culture, the hip hop culture. And he is. He is very important to the hip hop culture. Bad Boy is important to the hip hop culture. I have a very good friend of mine, highly intelligent, right? Bad Boy fan, right? And it's just like, I know what Diddy did was wrong and I don't condone any of that, but don't take my Bad Boy away from me. Don't take that music away from me. It's a soundtrack to a lot of millennials and Gen Xers' lives, especially when you go from like 94 to 98. That was my high school years. Those were my high school years. He is very important to the culture. But this is what 50 was talking about. It's the reason why he said, part of the reason also because he wanted to be petty. Part of the reason why he wanted to bring this out is because he was like, look, we don't condone these actions. This isn't a part, even though it slightly is, of the hip hop culture, right? Like this is not what we want representing hip hop culture. And there was a lot of people just protecting him through the years because they didn't want to damage the culture. Same thing, the reason why Bill Cosby was protected for years, right? He's protected for years, even though people knew what he was doing. People knew what he had been doing because he was so important to Black culture. Same thing with R. Kelly, to music. We knew what he was doing, but he was so important. You will play these moral gymnastics for people that you feel are important to whatever community that you are a part of. And you fall victim to not calling them out when you should. And people didn't call Diddy out. And they should have. And this protection of the culture. Also, and let's be frank, as we saw the jurors, one of the jurors was a male, misogyny and patriarchy are wrapped up and tied into this as well. One of the main jurors just was like, you know, it was a big deal It wasn't a big deal. Cassie and Diddy would fight and then they would get back together. It was a lover's quarrel. It wasn't a big deal. She wasn't being trafficked. She wasn't being trapped. If it was so bad, she could just leave. And that's such a male thing to say. It really is. And not just male. There are some women who actually uphold patriarchy and misogyny, but that's just such a, why didn't they just leave? Because we feel that we could just leave. I was talking to a friend of mine, female, who was explaining to me that her next door neighbor plays the music loud. And I said, what is your neighbor? She said, it's a man. I said, you can't go knocking on that door. I said, if it was me, I'm 6'4", 235, 40 pounds. I'll go knocking on that door because I don't care. I'm not afraid of a confrontation. I'm not afraid of whatever comes at me at that door. It is what it is. It's a little bit different when you're a female. You can't just go confronting. And I was like, you're in a precarious situation because you also don't want to be a Karen, right? You don't want to go snitch. What you would wish that you could do was go knock on the door, but you don't know you don't know what's going to come of that out. You don't know what that outcome is going to be, right? From that action. You don't know how that's going to be perceived, how that other person is going to respond to you knocking on their door, complaining about their music being loud. The best suggestion was, hey, go to the leasing office, say you don't want to make a formal complaint, but that maybe somebody could talk to your neighbor. But I understand that she, as a female, can't just go and confront because you don't know how that person is going to respond, especially when it's a male. It's so easy for men to say, why don't women just leave? It's not that easy, bruh. It's not that easy. And for you to not have the empathy or sympathy to hear a woman's plight and just be like, well, I don't understand because I'm not a woman, but I'm going to take your word for it and ride with what you say. That's just not how misogyny and patriarchy works. So this is another reason why Puffy was enabled for all these years. And that's what I basically got from the documentary. Powerful people, important people will always be enabled for their bad behavior. And we, as human beings, need to do a better job of stepping up, calling them out, speaking out, no matter what it does to whatever group that we're associated with. That's just the truth. But all right, Puffy nearly broke the culture. Let's see how a preteen is trying to break her mother's wallet. And we're going to get into that next. Gen Alpha doesn't want toys anymore. These kids want corporate starter packages. I came across this really interesting story in People magazine. The title of the article is Mom Goes Viral for Sharing Daughter's Christmas Wishlist. So basically the article is about an Idaho mom named Mackenzie Elworth, whose TikTok series about her 11-year-old daughter, Capri's, roughly $5,000 Christmas wish list went viral, then reveals that the real list is much smaller and that the original videos were meant as an exaggeration, tongue-in-cheek type content. I'm going to get into all that later, but let me get into the article. So Mackenzie Elworth is a professional body piercer and mother of 4 who posts piercing content and family moments, especially with her daughter Capri on TikTok. The mother-daughter duo had already built an audience before the Wishlist series, so followers were primed to react when the high-priced items appeared on screen. In the initial video, Capri presents a Christmas lift that viewers estimate at around $5,300. That included a $90 sweatshirt, $98 Lululemon leggings, and the latest iPhone 17, and a range of makeup and skincare products. A follow-up video added even more expensive items such as an Apple Watch, a cat, and pushing this fantasy total to close to $5,000, fueling outrage and fascination. Let me get into that. Now, this is an 11-year-old kid. Kids have no concept of money. None. At 10 and 11 years old, I had no concept of how much things cost. If a video game cost $40 in 1991, I didn't know how much $40 was. I thought it was $40. Who don't got $40? Get that game for me, right? I didn't imagine that $40 is really expensive, especially for 1991. Really expensive, right? You don't have any concept of money. So of course, kids are going to put things on their Christmas list that are extravagant because they have no idea how much money costs. I was talking to a friend because their child had started writing their Christmas list, and they were like, this child must think that I'm made of money. And I was like, that child don't even understand money. But you could take this opportunity to explain money to them, which is a lesson that I don't think any child was too young to learn. It's the most important lessons when you live in this country, because money is so very, very important in this country. So people attacking the kid or attacking the mom and the kid because the mom is posting what this wish list is, like, this is ridiculous. But there was people that attacked. Commenters slammed the list as entitled and sad, with some teens pointing out that their own wish lists were far more modest, featuring things like Pokemon cards or squish marshmallows or Apple Pencil instead of the luxury fashion and tech. Others question what happens to kids wanting toys, using the comment threads to vent broader frustration about consumer culture and parenting norms. I will say something about that. What do you expect from kids when you put an iPad in their hand at the age of 3? What do you expect they are going to want? When you put expensive things in their hands at a young age, they're going to continuously want expensive things because that's what they're used to. No, they're not going to ask for toys. They're going to ask for the latest iPod, the latest iPhone, Meta glasses. They're going to ask for all of that stuff because you put those items in their hand. And you put those items in their hand because it was easier to parent when they're busy and preoccupied and distracted. This is your fault. Parents out there, your kids ask for expensive stuff, it's your fault. Take them iPads away from them, have them go build something with Legos. And Legos are expensive too, but at least that's enriching their mind, not to say that some iPod games and TV shows don't enrich their mind because it's all about learning. Like, I think that you don't take the iPod away from them. Like, if it's teaching your child, that's always a good thing. But it shouldn't be the only thing that teaches your child. Legos, Pokemon cards, board games. Like, all this stuff is good. If you open the variety of things that you put into Play-Doh. Do kids even play with Play-Doh anymore? Play-Doh is fun. You give these kids variety, they'll want variety. And it doesn't always have to be expensive. But was this real or was it satire? Ellsworth later clarified in the Wishlist series that the over-the-top list was partly satire and crafted as an exaggerated content rather than a literal record of what her daughter expected to receive. She explained that viewers did not see the context that she and Capri understood going in, that this was a big dream list and that the child did not believe that she would receive everything on it. Okay. Do I believe this could be satire? Maybe. I'm not familiar with their page. So it very well could be. If she's routinely doing satire with her daughter, very well could be satire. Now, could it be convenient that they say that this is satire and tongue-in-cheek because of the backlash that they received? That could be possible too. Is it also true that kids will write this big wish list knowing that they'll put everything on it, knowing that they won't get everything? That's true too. Because I remember being a kid at 11 years old, making a Christmas wish list, knowing that I wouldn't get everything on it, making special notations like, this is more important than this. This is what I really, really want. That happens. Like, kids, if your kid thinks that they can make a big wish list and that they're going to get everything on it, that's your fault. That's your fault. Most kids, I believe, will know that they're not going to get everything that they want, but they're going to give you a big list because they want to make sure that you know everything that they want. They're going to make little notations of what's important, And then you can pick and choose the rest. When she shared her daughter's genuine Christmas list, the total value came to about $441, which I still think is pretty high, which she described as much more reasonable than the viral version. Capri still hopes for the higher end pieces from the original TikTok, like the Lululemon leggings and the pricey sweatshirt, but the real list drops to multi-$1,000 pets and piles of tech and cosmetics. Ellsworth says her goal is to let her kids dream big while also maintaining realistic expectations about what they can actually receive. She emphasizes that allowing a child to write an extravagant wish list does not mean a parent will fulfill it line by line. Instead, she sees it as a window into the interest and a chance to talk about money and priorities. And that I actually agree with, and actually co-sign. I think that it is important for your kids to write down everything. Kids' interests change. Parents are busy, right? Parents have their own lives. Parents are also people, and they might not be in tune to everything that their child has an interest in. And these lists will give you an idea. What if on that list you see coloring books? And you're like, hey, baby girl, why do you have coloring books in your wish list? Because I like to color in the lines I wish that I could draw them myself because I like to draw, but I'm not very good at it. You aren't, but it's something that you're interested in. Would it be a good gift? Art classes. So yes, it is a learning thing, and it is an opportunity to talk about money and priorities, right? Because like I said at the top, it's very important to teach your kids about money. And even though this little girl is 11, that doesn't mean that she's too young to be learning about money. That's like the perfect age. That's the perfect age for her to be having chores, an allowance, and understanding how money works. Understanding that unless you can buy two of it and it won't hurt you, you can't buy one of it. That's the golden rule. If you can't buy two of something, then you can't buy one. Save up your money a little bit more so that if you could buy two, it wouldn't hurt you. That means you could definitely buy one. These are things that kids need to learn. I was in the grocery store the other day and kids were buying some candy and stuff like that in front of me in the grocery store. And it was like, hey, kid, do you realize that you don't have enough money to buy this candy? And then the kid did have money. They was trying to, scam out of 14 cents. They didn't want to break another dollar bill, but that they need to understand, hey, look, unless you got it, unless you can afford to give it up to get what you want, you shouldn't be spending your money on it. And and you know what? If that kid didn't have enough money, I was going to get them kids the candy. Bruce loved the kids. He was in line and, I was going to get them kids the candy. But the point of the matter is, teaching your kids money and priority is a good thing. I don't necessarily know that I would be putting this all on TikTok, but I'm not a parent, and this is that generation. This is what they're doing now. She said her daughter loves to be on TikTok, loves to be a star. Okay, what have you. $1 for one child because they got four of them. It's still a lot of money, but I'm not buying Christmas gifts for kids. Maybe that's just the going rate now. I remember our parents had a budget. They never told us what the budget was, but I always knew that there were going to be more presents under the tree for my younger brother and sister than it was for me because the stuff that I wanted cost more. I wanted clothes when I got to high school and video games. That cost more. So I'm only going to have 5 or 6 presents under the tree, while my sister would have like 20. Plus, she was the only girl, and she's daddy's little girl, and she's spoiled. But that's the truth, and I understand it because I have a goddaughter, and I used to spoil the hell out of her too. Men will spoil the women that they care about. That's just what it is. But yeah, this is a learning experience. So for all you parents out there, Christmas is coming up. Let your kids write that big list. Let them write everything down. You might find out that there's some interests that they like. You might find out that there are things that you could push them towards that they might be able to be in the future. You never know. You don't know. But kids are honest. So if you ask them, you can learn a lot about your child, and you can also teach lessons that's going to help them in life. And I know that's what every parent wants to do, as well is raise well-adjusted adults. So yeah, the real list was only $441, which is still wild, but at least it didn't require a GoFundMe, right? And if your kid asks for $5,000 Christmas list, you got to sit them down and say, baby, we don't even make $5,000 worth of decisions in this house. And that's all a part of the teaching and the learning process for a young child to become a successful, functioning adult that we need more of in the society. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for watching. And until next time, as always, holla. Woo! That was a hell of a show. Thank you for rocking with us here on Unsolicited Perspectives with Bruce Anthony. Now, before you go, don't forget to follow, subscribe, like, comment, and share our podcast wherever you're listening or watching it to it. Pass it along to your friends. If you enjoy it, that means the people that you rock with will enjoy it also. So share the wealth, share the knowledge, share the noise. And for all those people that say, well, I don't have a YouTube. If you have a Gmail account, you have a YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can actually watch our video podcast and YouTube exclusive content. But the real party is on our Patreon page, After Hours Uncensored and Talking Straight-ish. After Hours Uncensored is another show with my sister. And once again, the key word there is uncensored. Those are exclusively on our Patreon page. Jump onto our website at unsolicitedperspectives.com for all things us. That's where you can get all of our audio, video, our blogs, and even buy our merch. And if you really feel generous and want to help us out, you can donate on our donations page. Donations go strictly to improving our software and hardware so we can keep giving you guys good content that you can clearly listen to and that you can clearly see. So any donation would be appreciative. Most importantly, I want to say thank you for listening and watching and supporting us. And I'll catch you next time. Audi 5000. Peace.